did I think that this was going to happen to Calum? No. Never thought it for a second until he jumps out of a second floor window. Coach Greg, and breaking news, it's recently come out by Bodybuilding and BS Nick Trigili that Calum Von Moger, the reason for all of this is he'd recently tried to end his life. And so we've seen the struggles, we've seen the downward spiral of Calum, and prior to jumping through that second floor window, he had actually been cutting himself in an attempt to try and end his life. People showed up, saw blood everywhere throughout the house. It literally took them 3 days to clean up this mess. And he managed to escape these people, get into a room, and jump through the window. That is how bad he no longer wanted to be with us.
I really wanted to wait till he got out of a coma to share this with you, but since he's still in a coma and it's Tuesday as of now in Australia.
And so unfortunately, Calum is still in a coma. We were all hoping, praying that he would get out of it, that he was doing great, and that he would be better than ever sooner than expected. However, with this news, it doesn't look good for Calum. And so if you consider that he's in the ICU, that's an emergency situation. The ICU is where they take the most serious patients. If he was doing well, not so bad, on his way to recovery, he wouldn't be in the ICU. And so the fact that he's still in a coma, perhaps it's medically induced, perhaps it's a coma on his own, for this many days, it doesn't look good for Calum. And so what we don't know is, why would Calum want to end his life? Did he in fact have these thoughts before all the drugs, before everything was going on? Is this something that he struggled with his entire life? I know the first time I had to deal with somebody ending his life, I was in grade 7, and a kid in my school in grade 8, he decided to end his life. We couldn't understand why. No one saw it coming. It was just something that happened suddenly. Didn't know what to think of this. Second time was in grade 12. One of my good friends, he decided to end his life. We had no idea that he was going to do this. He had recently taken his parents' car and drove through Canada for fun, for an experience. We thought that was cool. We thought, wow, look what this guy did. He took his parents' car, went for a drive. He never for 1 minute made it appear that he was not happy and didn't want to be on this earth. I've also had more friends do this later in my life, multiple times, and not a single time did I see it coming. Never. And so once this happens, what do? We think, oh, I could have done something about it. I could have fixed the problem. Why didn't I notice this? Is it my fault? Am I to blame? Why didn't I see it? And you keep playing back times you spent together and thinking, oh, well, that was kind of a sign, and you just don't know. My personal experience, and I'm not an expert on this, is you cannot blame yourself. Looking back now, perhaps there was some signs. His behavior, what he was doing, the drug use, the crimes, but you can't think that this is something that you could have prevented. And so it's the hopes of making this video that those of you out there, if you're having the same kind of thoughts, you're thinking you're depressed, that you no longer want to be with us, go seek out professional help. You have to go and do something about it. In many cases, they can in fact give you something, talk to you, help you out, and you can eventually get over this. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. And so oftentimes when people decide to end their lives, it can be something genetic. There's something out of balance with their brain chemistry. They're simply born with chemical imbalances, of which doctors can prescribe medications to try and help them. In other cases, it can be the result of serious trauma. In Calum's case, how do we know? How do we know that when his dog died, it didn't set him out on a downward spiral? After he had multiple serious injuries, perhaps in his mental state, this was enough to put him over the edge. Coupled with the use of recreational drugs, meth for example, if you use this, how do you know how that affects your brain chemistry? It could make it even worse. And so is it in fact the drugs that led to this? Is it the death of a pet? Perhaps friends, family, your career, money? It can be anything and everything. It could be a cause from one thing, another, or the fact that all this is happening at the same time. And so imagine when, and we hope that it's a when, we hope that Calum is able to get out of this coma. Imagine when he wakes up, how is he going to feel at this point? If you're withdrawing from drugs, you've come out of a coma, perhaps he has a very serious injury. And if he was to the point where he already wanted to end his life, and he wakes up, perhaps he's paralyzed. Perhaps he could never walk again. We don't know how serious the injuries really are. He hasn't woken up yet. How is that going to play a toll on his mental state at that point? Is he going to be able to get better? We can only hope so. We can only pray and hope that he's able to recover from all of this and become the Calum that he once was. But if you're watching this and you have similar struggles and you think that you might eventually end up in his situation, please tell someone about it. Tell your friends, parents, family. Go see a counselor, tell your doctor. Somebody is going to be able to help you.
This is verified by multiple sources. This is not just one person. I would never report this without knowing 100% this is the truth.
And so in case you're thinking this is fake news, for example, John Skywalker had stated, it's fake news. Why are you lying for clout? This is not for clout. It's not fake news. This has been verified by multiple sources. Nick Trigili himself has told me about these things, and he's getting this information from friends and family, close people to the situation. And so I highly encourage you to go and watch his channel, follow him. He has multiple videos about this, and you can trust the information that he is presenting.
So I did verify this multiple times, and allegedly, Calum Von Moger tried to commit suicide.
And so some people think, well, they could have prevented this. Well, consider the fact that a few of his friends went over to his house to check up on him. Does that not sound like he has friends, family who care about him? And they show up and they see blood everywhere, cuts on his arms, chest, and so on. And what do you do at that point? Calum is over 6 feet tall, a ton of muscle. Do you just tackle this guy? Do you jump on him? Well, how do you handle this? What do you do? I have no idea what I would do if I was in the same situation. And so he manages to get away from them and jump through the second floor window. Imagine the state of mind that you have to be in to be cutting yourself like this, blood everywhere, and to jump through a second floor window. Clearly, he's not happy with his life. He doesn't want to be here on this earth. And you're thinking, but he's so good looking. He's so rich, so famous. He has everything and anything going for him that he so chooses. And so why choose this? Listen, this happens all the time. And it's not just to people who are poor, non-attractive, or having a miserable life. There are many people on this planet exceptionally poor, have no money whatsoever, are not attractive, are not living the best life possible. But they are, guess what? Happy. Happiness is the most important thing you can have in this world. And not everyone is able to be happy. Perhaps they're just not born with the brain chemistry needed in order to experience joy. There are NFL and NBA superstars who have everything going for them. They're some of the best athletes in the world, celebrated by millions of people. And yet, they're not happy and they want to end their lives. Think of it. And so if it can happen to them, superstars, rich, famous, popular, extremely gifted and talented athletes, the best in the world, it could happen to anyone.
I was having hope that it wasn't this, but when I first heard the story, I immediately thought like, okay, this sounds like a suicide attempt. I mean, why else would someone jump through a window of a second story? I mean,
and so if you are having thoughts that you no longer want to be with us, and you add in the use of recreational drugs, just imagine what that can do to you. Perhaps if Calum was not using anything, that he was completely sober, in his right mind, that he would not have done this. But once you add in these drugs, they can alter your brain chemistry even more, perhaps make you even more depressed, and then in your weakest, saddest moment, that is when you are going to do something about it. And so I urge you, be careful. You might think you're just out having a good time and partying, but sooner or later, if you see you're starting to do it more than last time, you're feeling depressed, you have to go and do something about it. Perhaps you need to check yourself into rehab. Stay there for a while, get clean and sober. This happens to more people than you know, and it certainly can happen to all of us.
I feel like these sequence of events would have never happened or gotten here if the parents tried a little harder, or the friends tried a little harder, or if people were just like maybe a little more delicate with his feelings, because this is a cry for help.
I simply disagree with this, and I'm not saying he's wrong. I don't know the answers to this. I'm not a counselor or professional. I don't know any about this. But it's my personal belief that there's only so much other people can do, that the person that has these thoughts, they're the ones that need to do something about it. They're the ones that need to reach out for help. If you somehow enable an addict, you provide them money, shelter, clothing, you're helping them out, other than emotionally giving them support, this can actually make it worse. And so this message goes out to not only the people who are contemplating no longer being with us, it also goes out to friends and family. There is only so much you can do. You can't look back and second guess everything you did. You can't live with regrets and say, I should have done this, I should have known. How did I not see this coming? It is not your fault. I'm sure that people have lost friends and family due to this. They don't need to suffer anymore. You don't need to hold yourself accountable and think, this is my fault. Imagine living the rest of your life thinking you're to blame for someone else's attempt at ending their life.
This is something I never would have imagined from Calum Von Moger. You know, like when you look at Calum Von Moger, you think like successful, always happy, always having a good time, great sense of humor, goofy guy, like loves to live in the moment.
Did I think that this was going to happen to Calum? No. Never thought it for a second until he jumps out of a second floor window. And so watching his videos, you think he's having a great time, he's having fun, loves life. But suddenly, it's not like that. You're thinking, well, it's probably the drugs. But is it that? Or are the drugs the cause of not being happy? And perhaps all those years where he appeared to be happy, he wasn't. I know in my own personal situations, when I had to deal with this, I had no idea. The other people, they looked happy. No one expected this. Not a single person. Not even parents thought that this was going to happen. And they see them every single day. And so this is just a sad occurrence that happens in life, and you cannot put the blame on yourself.
At this point, we just have to say our prayers for him. Obviously, people from afar can't really do much. Hope for the best for the future for him.
And so hopefully you understand that although this is sad news to report, it's still an important message that needs to be shared to so many people. Perhaps in watching this video, maybe even one life is saved or affected in a positive way. You have to understand that these things, they're part of life, and we can only do so much. But if we're aware of it, especially the people who are in those situations, you need to seek out help. And let me just remind you to subscribe and click the bell button. You can also go follow Nick Trigilli, who knows more about this situation, has multiple videos. Please go watch his channel. Ending it here. And until next time, I am out.